So we're part one of the Red Zuma project, and in order to kick this off, then I'm going to start with the required format for the project, and this will be a document that I'll Moodle. It'll be called the Red Zuma project format. It's in a Microsoft Word document. That at the top of Moodle, and there's a Red Zuma folder there. There's some instructions here for each part. And part one, as an example, will be defining the project work schedule, and the deliverables for this will be printouts of MS Project, which I'm going to make available in a separate Word document on Moodle in the Red Zuma folder, and it'll be named appropriately Part 1. I'll include in that the Gantt chart, and I'll also include a Gantt chart that just has the critical activities, those on the critical path. I'll also include a network diagram, and then the schedule reporting table, which has the early start, early finish, late start, late finish, and the slack column built into it. And then in a later video, we'll cover the requirements for part 2, 3, and 4. But we go to the form document here. So again, this is supposed to be signed by the students, but you can just type your name in there because this is going to be turned in electronically. This will be the final report. Now, the first part 1, is due. Was due Thursday, the following Thursday after this week is over. And so next week I want you to turn in this document, but only turn in part, right? So we're just going to do part 1, and this will be in memorandum format. So you'll fill this part out, and then you'll copy and paste the network diagram and the link table into this as figures. And so during your memorandum statements in here, which will probably be a couple of paragraphs, you reference that a Gantt chart is provided, and it's figure 1, and a network diagram is provided, and that could be figure 2, or however you choose to do that. But very important that you do not put in here question 1 and answer 1, or come in here and just put a 1 dot and then start providing an answer. This is not a question and answer, and so the assignment to be answered in memorandum format. And I'll send an email to make sure we're covered on that. But the itself, and you can read through this, and you might include some of this in the first memorandum about the project, what it is. But this is the Red Zuma project, and this is only found in the 6th edition. So if you're looking at a 5th edition book, it'll be Blue Zuma, and it's a different project, so it's not the right one. But I also have this PowerPoint in the Red Zuma folder that explains as copies of the assignment from the book. So part of this, before we can also see our priority matrix here, and our constraint here is scope. We have to stay within the scope of the product. The end product has to have all the features that are required. If we spend a little more money, so we need to be able to add a few resources to this project, and we do that because we're not resource constrained, because we can use some additional funding. But part 1 states that you're a member of a project team assigned to develop a new Razor scooter, Red Zuma. Table A2.5 contains the information necessary to create a project schedule, and purposes of the case assume the following. The project date will be January 2nd, 2015. The following holidays are observed, and the same holidays that we placed in the Greendale Stadium, but you can see here. And then you can also see this number 3, if a holiday falls on a Saturday, then Friday will be given as an extra day off, and if it falls on a Sunday, then Monday will be given an extra day off. December 25th falls on a Friday, they will not be given as a day off since it's Friday. And the project team will work 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So then we're down here to table A2.5, and this is the project schedule. And here we have an identification for each of these activities, and we also have a duration for each activity and predecessors listed. So from here we're going to construct a network schedule for this project and then prepare a memo that answers the following questions. Again, memo, not just the answers. So we'll do these questions and see if we can get all these answered as we go through the project. Just going to move this over to the side while we do this. So the first thing we have to do in here is take our names and put them in here. And actually, before we do that, the first thing we have to do in here is go into project tool, make sure we have in our holidays. And I've already put these in, and if you want to see details on how to put these in, review the Greendale Stadium recording that's in the project recordings, and you can see exactly how these are done. But I don't think it's sufficient use of our time to go through that every time we build one of these out. And our project start date we've already entered here is January 2nd, 2015. So we will enter our individual task, and then we can also enter our, but before we do that, I just want to make sure these are all acting correctly. So I'm going to take all of the tasks that are underneath the name of the project, Zuma project, and indent them one time. And I can see this little emblem that looks like a square with a, or is a square with a minus sign in it. And if I click on that, all our activities will then roll up, and I can see them. They're summarized underneath this heck of the project name. And for the durations that are in the table provided, we will not enter duration for the Zuma project because it is now a hammock activity, and it will take on the tasks that are aligned under it. So if we put in here, just by doing that without putting predecessors or dependencies in here, I can already tell that the longest duration of any task is 45 days because that's the total length of the project. And we have the start date is January 2nd, 2015. So now just put in here our predecessors. And I paste those in here. And I think I have to do here. When I pasted these in, they have this little note over here. And so I think that is keeping us from, we want to schedule those, and we also want our task type to be effort start as soon as possible. Looking for type. We want as soon as possible, and it should correct that. So once put in the predecessors, and we know the project start date, which is January 1st, 2015. So these will build out. Now, one thing I do want to cover here that wasn't covered in the Glendale Stadium when we looked at predecessors, one thing we talked about in that project was we can have multiple predecessors for a particular activity. So finalized product design, we know that manufacturing process must be completed. We also know that the lab test prototypes must be completed, or that the field test prototypes must be completed. We have 7, 10, 11. But in chapter 5, we talked about lag times when our predecessors, we can put in lag time. So for here, the predecessor that's listed here says that number 14, which is order components completed, but we have a finish to start relationship. So after the production is finished, we're going to wait 20 days, that's our time plus 20, to start this activity. And we're also going to have a relationship for number 15, which, I'm sorry, that's order production equipment. And that one will be finished to start. So when that one finishes, this one will start, but it will start 30 days after that finishes. And so we can come over here to the Gantt view of this and see that both of these finished back at time frame, but we did wait this amount of time to get this one started. And it does use both of these constraints. And then finally, the deliberate, which you should say celebrate. See down here, the celebrate activity is completed after the install the product equipment and also the detailed marketing plan as well. So this is the final version of our project plan or in Microsoft Project. Now, in Chapter 8, we just talked about adding resources. We're not adding those yet. We will add those in Part 2 or Part 3 at the very latest of the Red Zuma project. But now this is as far as we need to go. So we're just going to save that. So then upload Red Zuma Part 1. You have the software downloaded on your computers. We'll go into one of the computer labs at the college. You'll be able to pull this up and look at it. So we're going to see if we can answer these questions. So one is, one project needed to be complete, and we can tell right away that this project is 260 days and it's going to be finished on January 13th, 2016, which is the second part of the question, how long will the project last? So I want to open up Microsoft Word, and I will shot of this. Now, Gantt view that I've changed the defaults on my settings for the software so that the critical path Gantt charts are red, as you can see right here. And if you click on this, and then you can change this to change the formats, but I like the red. So we need to have our Gantt chart, and I got a copy of that, is the critical path for the project. So we can do there under View, we can go to this filter. Again, we looked at this in the Greendale Stadium, so hopefully you remember that. But under View toolbar, we can go to this filter and click Critical. Now we can just see these are on the critical path. Label that in the Word document as well. What activity has the longest or the most amount of slack? So we have to go to a different table in order to see that. So I'm going to turn this through so we can see all the activities. And then what we're going to do is change the tables. So under View, with this tool, this button for tables, and what we want to go to is the Schedule table. And then you can see free slack. So since we have to put in the schedule table reports, early start, late start, and late finishes. We have in here our start and finish. We have the late start, the late finish, the free slack. I don't see is the early start and the early finish. So what we'll do is just right-click here with a column, and it lists all of the possibilities. But if we hit the E button on our keyboard, we'll see early start show up. And then if I right-click on this column again to insert another one, and E, I also get the late finish. And then we can move that out to make it happen. Get rid of these number symbols. So what I'm going to do is just take a copy of this screen capture and in a Word document. From that view, we can answer the question, detailed marketing plan has 179 days of slack. And how sensitive is the network? Well, for that, we actually need to take a look at the critical path. And for that, we can either look, I like to look at it in this entry view when I'm looking at the Gantt chart. I would look at is this: how many of these items are red? You know, so how many total activities do we have in our project? Well, we have 16, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those are blue, which means 10 of our activities are on the critical path. Even if we take out the start and stop nodes, that's a pretty sensitive project, meaning, you know, if 2/3 of the activities on our project were to change, I would say that, you know, the project duration. So if 2/3 of your activities changing could change the end or the duration of your project, I'd say it's pretty sensitive in that regard. Then we want to identify, and this is a rather strange way of asking, but identify two sensible milestones. Explain your choices. And so in this regard, I do like to look at the network diagram. And again, in Microsoft Project, it's rather difficult to see the network diagram because when you get it to a certain view where you can see the whole thing, the print is just too small to read. But let me go ahead and take a snapshot of this for our screen capture for the Word document, and it'll be up there. But we look at tasks, we want to ask ourselves, you know, what makes these sensitive? And usually what comes sensitive, and they're just saying identify 2 here in the text. What I would consider to be sensitive would be merge. They'd be merge activities, so they have multiple activities coming into them, and that they are on the critical path. Right. So we could look at this starting from the front of our project. We could look and say that we're over this design selection could be sensitive. It is a merge activity, and it's also feeding 3 other activities. We could also look at final product design. It's a merge activity. It is critical. It feeds 2 others, and it has a higher ID number. It's 1.11, where this one, product selection, is only 1.4. So further out into the project, the more sensitive they could be to change. We're past slack time, and that's the only reason. And they have anything up here could impact it further. There's another. I also have this one here, which is install product equipment. That's another one. It's a merge activity. That wouldn't include the last one, which is our stop node. Celebrate doesn't seem to be too sensitive. I mean, it's when we want celebration for the project, but truthfully, this could be considered a stop node way out here. So the 2 sensitive activities I would probably use for this would be flash product design and so product equipment. And again, in the text it says identify 2 sensible milestones, but they mean sensible from a sensitive perspective, sensitivity. With that, and with the we should be able to answer all the questions that are required for the first part of Red Zuma. And again, these need to be these questions need to be answered in a form of memorandum.